Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us today for our presentation. As you may already know, we're here to discuss our findings on the topic using Goldratt's problem-solving procedure to solve problems associated with BlackBerry smartphones. With us today, we have Charles Boggs, myself, Chris Bullock, Robert Davis, Yaroslav Segita, Danielle Placid, Stacy Reeves, and Carla Rodriguez. Let's get started. So to start, we wanted to look at the history and background of BlackBerry. It was recently founded in 1984 by Mike Lazaridis and Doug Freegan, originally known as Research in Motion, also RIM for short. In the late 1980s, the focus of the company was developing secure communication networks, this being mainly credit card terminals and pager systems. It wasn't until 1996 when the RIM 900 was released. Now this was kind of the first model of what would become the BlackBerry eventually. Now what was unique about this product is that it was a two-way pager system, kind of like text messaging as we know it today. In addition, it was able to do faxes, connect to the internet, and get onto email. So in 1997, after the successful launch of the RIM 900, the company went public and they were able to raise $115 million on the Toronto Stock Exchange. 2 years later, after continued success, they became listed on the NASDAQ and were able to raise another $250 million. In 2002, they introduced the BlackBerry, and to say the corporations bought it would be an understatement. They loved the security that it offered, and then before too long, the consumer market started to pick up on it as well. That very first year, they were able to gain 1 million subscribers, and over the years until 2007, the company continued to grow rapidly. By that time, they had about 10 million subscribers, and they became the most valuable company in Canada in a relatively short period of time. But that same year is where we saw the iPhone released from Apple. Now, at first, this threat was not taken seriously really by any cell phone producer. In fact, it hardly even made a dent in BlackBerry for a few years. As you see the next point here, in 2009, BlackBerry actually continued to grow very rapidly for the next 2 years. Their subscription base was over 36 million by this point. Now, in 2010 is when the iPad was first released. Now, this is kind of where the tides turned for BlackBerry. People really liked the iPad. BlackBerry tried to come back with their own product. It was supposed to come out in late 2010, but ended up being delayed until the middle of 2011. And by that time, Apple was well entrenched into the tablets world. So really, the BlackBerry release was an absolute disaster, and it really shifted the populace more to Apple than to BlackBerry. So with the iPad, people started buying the iPhone with it as well. In fact, moving on here, we see it wasn't until 2012, nearly 5 years later from the iPhone being released, that the BlackBerry came out with a new model that could rival the iPhone or have the same kind of specs. And by that time, the Apple and Samsung Android had well taken the market, and the BlackBerry was rapidly declining. Looking at the stock prices in 2008 when they were at their high, $137 a share. Now looking recently last year, they had a low point of $665, just to show how high they climbed and how far they'd fallen. So moving on, we next want to look at BlackBerry's undesirable effects. More specifically, we're going to look at 10 of the most prevalent UEDs that we feel really impact the current situation of BlackBerry. So number one, the phone processing speeds are slower than the competition. This is becoming a real problem for BlackBerry. Their competition is much faster, and consumers are really looking for that speed, that processing time to be reduced. Number two, the app selection is insufficient. When we're comparing it to what Apple and Android are offering, it simply just does not measure up. Consumers want the app for everything, and BlackBerry just does not have the selection that they need. Number three, the new BlackBerry tablet expansion that we mentioned in the previous slide is falling far short of expectations. Very disappointed sales levels. In fact, they had to take a cut on the inventory value because simply they had to reduce the price. They were not selling the tablet as high as they expected. Number four, phone security are losing their competitive advantage, much enjoyed. At one point, this was the absolute backbone of BlackBerry, and for all intents and purposes, in a sense, it still is. But unfortunately, that is no longer enough to keep the customer base. The added features of the other phones are simply becoming more of a draw than the security features of BlackBerry alone. And then number five, customers are complaining that the phones are too expensive for the features you're getting. So when you look at the Apple, you look at the Android, they're coming up with great hardware, great speed, and the BlackBerry is just not matching. But they are asking the same selling price, and customers have noticed that. And moving on, number six, BlackBerry is simply unable to compete with internet browsing capabilities. This is a very limiting factor with the BlackBerry. Their browsing capabilities are, say, very limited, especially in comparison to the Apple. Number seven, the executive infighting has really plagued BlackBerry, especially in deciding on the future direction of the company. They have a co-CEO system, which may have worked before, but currently it is causing a lot of disagreements. Number eight, BlackBerry is losing market share in the once stronghold of enterprise customer group. This kind of goes along before where we say security isn't enough. Corporate loves security, but the other features that the competitors are offering are outweighing this benefit. Number nine, the BlackBerry product designs have been stagnant for several years while the competition is innovating. As we mentioned before, it actually took them 5 years to release an upgraded phone from the iPhone, something that could somewhat compete, and by that time it was still well behind the newer models that the iPhone had released. And number 10, BlackBerry has inferior hardware specs compared to the competitors. Now this could include processing speeds, but really what we're looking at here is quality of the camera, again processing speeds. So looking at the UEDs we just identified in the previous slide, we have built a current reality tree to kind of paint the picture and try to identify the core problem of BlackBerry. Okay, so to start, we looked at number 8. BlackBerry is losing market share in the once stronghold of the enterprise customer group and failing to attract the individual customer market. Now, an injection there is a clear direction of the corporate plan is vital to maintain BlackBerry's place in the industry and promote it in the private sector. Following up the tree, number 7, a continued executive infighting between the co-CEOs is causing a corrosive effect on the product line. Now, to add to that, disagreements at the corporate level result in poor marketing decisions or lack thereof. Poor marketing decisions or lack thereof. Number 9 is where we go to next. The BlackBerry product designs have been stagnant for several years while competition continues to innovate. App selection and quality of those apps have not been addressed. We're adding that to the left. Phone security is once the backbone of BlackBerry phones. So following up the tree on the left, we're going to start with number 2, insufficient quality and selection of apps. And then again, to add to that even further, sufficient quality is represented by the specifications of hardware. Now over onto the right tree, we're going to add number 4, where phone security features are losing the competitive advantage once enjoyed. And again, to add to that, security features were initially one of the main reasons customers purchased BlackBerry products. Now to continue up the tree, again starting on the left, we have number 10. BlackBerry has inferior hardware specs compared with the competitors. And as part of that, a component of hardware is the processing speeds. Now continuing on the right with UED number 5, the customers are complaining that phones are too expensive for the available features. And to add to that, the available features on phones and tablets need to be comparable or more efficient than competitors. So continuing up the tree, again to the left, we find UED number 1. Phone processing speeds are slower than competition. And to add, processing speeds are directly affected. They directly affect internet browsing capabilities. Now over to the right, the new BlackBerry tablet expansion is falling short of sales expectations. And then number 6, to complete the left tree, BlackBerry phones are unable to compete with internet browsing capabilities. Now this is our current reality tree that we have. It really paints the picture of what the core problem is. And I mean, ultimately, BlackBerry is losing market share. So now that we have determined what we believe to be the core problem for BlackBerry, the next step is to create what we call an evaporating cloud. Now, what we're going to do here is take our core problem and we're going to create a statement or an objective, essentially flipping that problem and making it a non-problem. So we read it like this: BlackBerry becomes competitive in both the enterprise and individual smartphone markets. Now this is going to be broken out into 2 arguments. The business side is going to say, hey, we need to continue to upgrade security features to stay ahead of the competition. And why? Because our business clients will have confidence that their information is secure. Now those that feel that we need to go after the individual market will argue that we need to sacrifice security for improved performance and functionality. Why? Because the individual buyers will like these upgrades, and as a result, they will want to purchase more BlackBerries, leading back to our objective that BlackBerry becomes competitive in both the enterprise and individual smartphone markets. Now you can see we have a conflict here. We can't achieve both. So the answer is, how do we not compromise and achieve both of these objectives? And the answer is we need to create an injection. So what we're going to do is change from the BlackBerry operating system software to the market-preferred Android while improving the hardware security of traditional BlackBerry devices. So we get essentially the best of both. So now that we have solved our evaporating cloud, the next step is going to be to create a future reality tree, which takes that injection from the cloud and injects it into our current reality tree. And what this will do is, in fact, show how we can eliminate the current undesirable effects and turn them into desirable effects. So to start, as you know from our injection, change from BlackBerry operating system software to the market-preferred Android while improving the hardware and security of traditional BlackBerry devices, the best of both. So the first thing to add in the injection is that BlackBerry maintains its stronghold of enterprise customers and attracts customers in the individual customer market. And following up, a clear direction of the corporate plan is established. The executive infighting stops as a clear plan has now been made. Phone security remains a very competitive advantage. And the BlackBerry product designs become innovative. And this is going to connect up. BlackBerry will have access to a large selection of Android apps. And sufficient quality is represented by the specifications of hardware to complement that. And that's going to move up as BlackBerry adds competitive hardware specs. And of course, as before, a component of hardware is the processing speeds. Now again, up the tree, the Android software mixed with the improved hardware specs results in high processing speeds. And of course, processing speeds directly affect internet browsing capabilities. And finally, that's going to connect BlackBerry phones compete with the internet browsing capabilities of competitors. Now to finish off the tree on the right, phone security is now partnered with increased performance and functionality of Android, giving a greater advantage. And moving up, customers see the value of having both the high security with functionality and are willing to pay a premium. Available features on the phones are compatible with other devices, which is going to lead to the new BlackBerry tablet sales exceed initial expectations. So in conclusion, we can see that by using Goldrat's theories, we can identify the UEDs, find the core problem, and address it, putting BlackBerry back on the path of success. Now, there are those that will argue that it's too little too late, but we'll let you be the judge of that. Thank you for attending today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come see our presentation. Does anybody have any questions for us?